Toss Up, we toss in topics and talk about them. Joining us today is our guest, Mr. Barry. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody about yourself and say hello.
Hello, my name is Barry Drummond. I'm a retired Department of Veterans Affairs employee and a Navy veteran and God-fearing Jubilee Christian.
So thank you guys for listening. Welcome back to Toss Up, again, where we toss and talk about them. Thank you guys for joining us. This is another good week. Life's been good, just learning to just walk with the flow, not being in a rush. Because I think in America we're always in a rush, trying to do this, do that. And I'm learning to just slow down, breathe, and let the Lord move and stop trying to be God, be this. Like, stop trying to take all these hats and just let God be God. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah.
Still learning every day. You don't learn that just in one day. But yeah.
That's true, yes.
With that being said, I want to go ahead and take a moment and just tell you guys about this event that we're having April 26th, Saturday, April 26th, at Jubilee Word Outreach. It's going to be an amazing event. We have singing, Tish. It is a live podcast session. So it's going to be a live podcast session, which you see Live 25. The acronym stands for Love, Intercede, Victory, Evangelize. And so I'm excited. This is our second one. This is the first time we've added an acronym to it. And the title of the conversation is Who Do You Say I Am? So join us for an amazing night. We've got Eric Patton, we've got Toby Patton, and Micah Simley hosting. And we've also got Dolly Harvey and some more amazing speakers. You saw the flyer. But go ahead and go to tosstalk.org to get your shirt and sign up. The registration is free, but we will have shirts available on tosstalk.org starting April 1st. So, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Life's good.
Life is excellent. I have no complaints.
Same. I feel like when you complain, I'm learning that when you complain, that I feel like it just kind of just like blocks the blessings from coming. Not blocks it, but you know.
Yeah, hinders.
Hinders.
Yeah.
It's hindered.
So yeah, I mean, life is good today. I mean, I'm at a point in life where I don't have to be rushed to get to anything or do anything. Being retired is wonderful. Being, a Christian at this point in life and having a great church home and a great church family is just something that everything in my life just sort of came together really well in the last 2 to 3 years. So I'm blessed.
The Lord aligns. Sometimes I learn like everything's gonna work out the way it needs to. That's what I'm learning.
Yes.
Because I get caught up in the because I could think you think about what you see right now, and I'm like, when is it gonna happen? When am I gonna get to the final point? Like, and I realize every it's just you keep going upstairs, you just keep going, and you just keep allowing God to lead you and keep going, trusting and reading your word, standing on His word, all that.
It's a journey. Enjoy the journey. It's like taking a trip. You enjoy the trip, because when it ends, it means it's over.
Yeah.
So you want to enjoy that journey while you're on that journey, the ups and downs, all of it. Enjoy all of it. Each day that you wake up is a blessing. Each day that you wake up, you get an opportunity to make a difference in someone else's life. Reach out to someone, help someone that may be way less fortunate than you. So take advantage of each and every day and look for the blessings and the sweet spot in each and every day.
Look for the sweet spot. That's good advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to write that down.
It took me a while to get there. Okay, I didn't figure this out overnight. Okay, that I will guarantee you. It took me a while to get there, but having retired in 2023 and just being at Jubilee and having the things that are available at Jubilee so that I can learn and grow and become a different person, than I was 5 years ago. I mean, 5 years ago I was a workaholic. I just work all the time. And I was concerned about whether or not I was going to be able to retire and when I was going to be able to retire. And at some point, I just decided, I've got to put this in God's hands. And one of the things that occurred in my life, I don't know if you knew, but I'm a recovering drug addict. I was a crack addict for 15 years.
Wow.
And yeah, I got clean in January 2004, and getting off drugs and starting and realizing that God was the head of my life, needed to be the head of my life, and that should be my focus. If I stayed focused on God, everything else will line up the way it's supposed to. But I had to have faith, I had to have trust, and most of all, I had to be committed to studying that word and living that word and having that word live in me. And as I began this journey of recovery, every time I needed a door to open, that door opened right on time. You know, it just getting into the recovery center at the VA, most people had to wait a week or two and stay in a shelter. I didn't have that. I got a bed right away. When the person that got me in called, he got a bed for me right away. You know, I hadn't paid income taxes for years and years and years. IRS wanted $22,000, almost $23,000 in back taxes. I was able to get a free attorney and settle that IRS debt for like $1,250. But that was because I was in the right place at the right time, saw a flyer on a board, called the number. I had to call back every week for 5 or 6 weeks, but I ended up getting that tax debt settled. Wanted to go back to school. Got a chance to go back to school after not being in a classroom for over 22 years. Program opened up. Tusculum College started a new program. I qualified, got enrolled. 2 years later, I had a degree.
Favor.
Yeah. So, but that was staying the course, doing what I was supposed to do, and being the man that I was supposed to be and being the Christian man that I was supposed to be. It wasn't always easy. I mean, there were times when I saw people that were out doing things that I used to do, and I thought about, man, I remember when I used to do that, and I used to have so much fun, but then I thought, I don't want to do that anymore. That's not really fun. I don't want to live like that anymore. And I don't, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not going to a club on Friday or Saturday night. I'm okay with not drinking and not hanging around people I'm okay with that. I like the way I live today.
Okay? I like the way I live today. That's a good phrase. That should be on a shirt. I like the way I live today. Yes. That should be on a shirt.
Yeah.
So what has kept you from not going back? Because I know, for me, sometimes I have a tendency to look what's behind me. Mm-hmm. I know I've left it alone. I know I put it in the trash can. I know it's dead. Mm-hmm. I know also the Bible says a dog spits out his own vomit and eats it back up. Mm-hmm. How do you keep yourself grounded that you don't turn back? Okay, think of this. Okay.
If you're driving in a car, you're looking out a windshield. Have you ever noticed that front windshield is bigger than the back glass?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a reason for that. You got a better view of where you're going, not necessarily looking back at where you've been. So I don't want to be looking back at where I came from or where I've been, because I don't want to go back there. I want to move forward, and I want to see things that are in front of me. Okay? And that wide road ahead of me, I'm looking forward to going down that road and seeing what's available to me.
Oh, you started that preaching. I'm sorry.
So, yeah. So what keeps me from not going back? There's a videotape that's in my brain that says if I go back to that, I'm going to end up homeless, carless, broke. Okay? I don't ever want to live like that again. Okay? I just don't. Nothing is worth me going back to that lifestyle. It just isn't. So I don't even think about it. When you first get off drugs, a lot of times you have what are called using dreams, where your body, because of those chemicals and what you've done to your body and your mind, it wants to try to relive that again. And it actually gives you the same sensation that you have when you're actually using drugs. I don't want to play that tape again. I don't want to go back there again. I don't want that feeling. I don't want to have any of that whole lifestyle. Is nothing I ever want to live again. And I know as long as I live in the Word and have the Word living in me, that I stand a really good chance of never, ever going back to that lifestyle again. Now, one of the things I don't do, don't get me wrong, there was a time when if I went to Knoxville, it was a beeline to my mother's house and a beeline back to Johnson City. I didn't go through certain neighborhoods. There were people that I knew that I'd known for years, practically all my adult life, that I knew were still using drugs. And I have brothers and family members that live in Knoxville, and they would see my family members and say, hey, here's my number, tell Barry to call me. And I would tell my brothers, I'm not calling. You can tell them I said hi, but I'm not calling. I know what they're into. I know what they're doing. They are more likely to try to convince me to use drugs than I am to get them to stop using drugs. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to put myself in that situation. Early on in my recovery, I wouldn't. Now so much, I would just walk away from you. I would just, hey, I'll pray for you, but I'm out. I wouldn't put myself in this. I wouldn't stay in that situation. I don't associate with anybody that I know of that uses hard drugs anymore. Just totally 180 from that lifestyle.
So you basically what I'm hearing is you just kept your eyes on Jesus, mm-hmm. and when something behind you tried to look, you look straight at Jesus.
Yeah. Look to the light.
Look to the light.
Yeah, not the darkness.
Look to the light.
Yeah, there's a reason there's headlights on the front of the car.
There's a reason there's headlights on the front of the car. I like that. That's good. My next question mm-hmm. is basically, how did that affect your relationship with your family when it came to you being a drug addict? How did that affect your relationship with your family, or did it? I know you have children. How did that your children?
Only one child. Okay. So
sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
But okay. So first of all, with my family, my family, especially my mom, there's nothing worse than seeing your mom cry over something that you're doing, and because they're hurting. And when I got clean, one of the first blessings was her being able to sleep at night, knowing I was in a safe place and I wasn't out there using drugs again. Now, my mother died within a year, 4 months of me getting in recovery. But that year and 4 months, my mother and I were closer than we'd ever been my entire life that I can remember. I'd call her every day, I knew she wasn't hurting anymore. Sometimes I'd have to listen to her vent for an hour because she was taking care of an adopted brother of mine and my sister's 3 kids. But that was okay. I was glad to do it. I could at least hear her voice, My brothers, they were disappointed in me. They saw me with more potential, and they knew they wanted me to do better. They probably wanted better for me than I wanted for myself. And they were hurting. And I had one brother that's actually a recovering alcoholic that lives in Chicago. And he shared with me one time, he told me, he said, I want my brother back. And I never forgot that. I want my brother back. And once I got clean, about a year into it, I called him and I said, hey, I got your brother back, And he was just totally, we are very tight today. I try to go see him a couple times a year because I just like being around him now. There were times when, as a kid, I wanted to beat him up, but he was bigger than me and I couldn't. Mm-hmm. But, seeing what he's gone through with his alcohol addiction, and he, by the way, was the brother that actually introduced me to drugs as a teenager. And one of the things that he did say to me was that he apologized for what he did, for introducing me to marijuana and cocaine. And if he had to do it over again, he said he would never do it over again. Well, I told him, I said, hey, brother, I had a choice. I chose poorly because I could have said no. I didn't have to choose to go down that road. I could have very well said no. God gives us free will.
Free will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That choice.
That's right. That choice.
Are you going to choose him or choose what's behind you?
There you go. So
and that's what the devil likes to thrive on.
Yeah. I'm just thankful that I finally made the right choice, and my family gets to see me living like this. Now, you asked me about my daughter, my child. I only have one child. I didn't know my daughter when I was using drugs. I didn't even know I had a daughter. I got clean in January 2004. I got a Facebook request in the fall of 2010 from a young lady that I knew when I lived in California. And back then, I was wild. I was. I mean, I'll admit it. I was wild. I was sworn to fun and loyal to none. And that's what I lived by. That's how I lived.
I never heard that phrase.
Yeah, yeah. Sworn to fun, loyal to none. And this was one of those fun times when, you know, me and this girl would hook up periodically, and apparently she got pregnant. The first time I saw this child, I asked her mother if that was my child, and she told me no, it was her boyfriend's child. And I thought it was kind of strange because when I walked in the house, the child was crying. Had never seen me before. I walked in the house, and the child stuck her arms up like, hey, pick me up. And I thought, that's kind of strange. Most babies don't do that to random strangers. And so I picked her up, and she stopped crying. And I thought, that's strange. And that's when I asked her mother, and her mother said no. Well, a year or two later, her mother calls me and says she needs to ride to the bus station. Okay, I'll come and take you. So I see the child again. But now her mother has another child. But I see what eventually I found out was my daughter. And she's looking at me, this kind of strange look, and I'm looking at her, and I'm going, And I asked her mother again, and she was, oh, no, I got to go. That's my boyfriend's baby. And so I'd let it go. Well, I never saw her. This is like 85 or 86. I never saw her again until 2010 when she found me on Facebook and sent me a friend request, and I recognized the name and her face. She still looked the same. And I responded. Come to find out, her mother was living in Asheville, North Carolina. So I went over there, and one of the first things she did is she says, you know, she's got something to tell me, and I couldn't imagine what it was. And then she says, well, I think my oldest daughter is your child. I was like, oh, really? And then she pulls out this picture and shows it to me, and my daughter had braids in her hair. She was 13 or 14 years old. She looked exactly like I did at that age. The only difference was she had braids in her hair. I took a picture of that picture, and I sent it to all my brothers. I never said anything about what the picture was. I just sent it to them. And immediately I got these responses back that said, what are you doing with braids in your hair? And I had to explain to them that's not me and who it was. And at that time, I was getting ready to move to transferring with the VA down to Arkansas. And I found out that at the same time I found out I had a daughter, I found out I had 4 granddaughters and a son-in-law, and that they lived in Texas. And so I kind of did a MapQuest thing to see where they were from where I was going to be living at, and they were way closer than what it is. And it's about 1,000 miles from here to get to the house. Arkansas, where I lived at, was about 360 miles. So the first time I got to see her, she was 29 years old. The next time I saw her, she was 29 years old. It was Father's Day weekend in 2011, and I went down. Her husband's family has a family reunion on their property every year on the Father's Day weekend, so I got a chance to see her. She wasn't there when I got there, but her family members and people kept walking up to me saying, oh, you're Maisha's father, aren't you? And I go, how do you know that? And they go, well, we can see it. And it was just that obvious. When she drove up and our eyes locked, it was like looking in a mirror because she favored me just that much. She didn't look anything like her mother. She looks more like me. I think her mother didn't like that, but you know, she does. She looks a lot like me. And I've had a great relationship with my daughter the entire time since we first got reunited in 2011. And you know, first she didn't want to talk to me, and she didn't want to have anything to do with me or her mother because her mother had been telling her these stories about who her father was, some guy in Kentucky, and just a whole set of lies that her and her mother were never close. And then I found out my daughter was being molested by her father when she was 11 or 12 years old. She had a baby right before her 13th birthday, and I thought, I'm going to kill this person. Who are they? But that's a whole nother story. But anyway, so I go down and I see her. She and I have had a great relationship the whole time, with the exception of one time. And she disrespected her mother, and I heard it, and it was over the phone. And I told her, that's unacceptable to me. I wasn't raised like that, and you need to apologize. And she refused to apologize. So I didn't talk to her for 6 months. I invited her whole family to go on vacation at my expense in Florida, and I told them she can't come. And I guess she thought I was kidding. I wasn't going to stick to my guns. But this was the first time she got to realize who her daddy really was, and that when he said, no, this ain't going to fly, it wasn't going to fly. And so eventually she apologized. And the thing about it, when she apologized, her and her mother, they buried the hatchet of crap that had been eating up both of them for all these years. And I'm like, why didn't y'all do this sooner? You didn't have to keep these grudges and this animosity and, disrespecting your mom. No, that's unacceptable. I mean, if I had ever, even in the worst of my addiction, if one of my brothers had ever found out I disrespected my mother, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair right now. And that's the truth. That's the kind of family I was raised in. No matter what. And I lived with my mom when I was, for a short period of time when I was in my 40s. And I would not disrespect my mother, period. There were times when I may not have liked something that she did or said to me or something. I'd go out the house, go out in the woods behind the house, kick a tree, do something, but I wouldn't disrespect my mother. And I won't. That's just how I was raised. And I had to really impress that upon my daughter, that is just unacceptable. God tells you, honor your mother and father so that the days of your life may be long upon this earth. Why would you want to disobey God and be disrespectful to your parent at the same time? No, not exactly. So, having that issue with one of my granddaughters right now, with regard to my daughter, and we've had a couple of conversations about the same thing, because, and you've heard Pastor Rayford talk about those generational curses. And what I tried to impress upon my granddaughter is, you did this, but you think about this. Maisha did this to her mother, and now you're doing it to her. I said, how are you going to feel if one day one of your daughters does that to you? And I could kind of see the light come on, but she still hasn't made that apology. So I'll keep praying for her. I will. I'll keep praying for her. That's all I can do. Yeah. I planted the seed. Hopefully the seed grows.
I guess you have to want it to grow, right, too?
Mm-hmm.
They have to want it to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to want it to grow. And even my granddaughter now, she has 3 kids, and she's not married. Her and her boyfriend they're cohabitating. Pastor says I'm using politically correct words. And he said they're shagging up. Oh, yeah, they're cohabitating. So, needless to say, every time I talk to her, I'm like, okay, when are y'all getting married?
What did she say?
She says, oh, we're going to do it. His family's wanting us to do it. My dad's wanting me to do it. And so we're going to do it eventually. I go, okay, make sure I get an invitation because I will come down here for that. Yeah. I'll make that 1,000-mile drive to make sure I'm there for that. I think that would be the right thing to do. She has 3 beautiful kids. Just found out one of them has autism. And she is just the sweetest little girl, and I'm really having some earnest prayers over that girl, for her to be healed from that disease. Because she just does not deserve. She's just such a sweet little personality. And I knew she wasn't verbalizing words. When she was about 2, I think it's the first time I met her, 1 or 2, first time I saw her, and she would always point to what she wanted. And so, 1-year-old, you kind of think, oh, they're just not verbalizing yet. They will eventually, but she never did. And I got a chance to see her. We're in March. I saw her the last part of February. I was down there for a week. And she's got to go to special ed school for a while and things of that nature. But the other 2 kids, got a great-grandson, got a chance to see him for the first time. He's a year old. Looks like he's about 3, big boy. Both his parents are small. I don't know where he got this size from. He's, just a wonderful young man. The older sister's really a hoot. I have to remind her that when she first saw me, she wouldn't come anywhere near me. I would go near her. She would take off and run the other way, crawl as fast as she could to get away from me and start crying. And now you cannot get between me and her. If I'm in the room, she's going to be right there. So what a difference, you know. I love all of them, though. They're all, you know, very special. Great-grandkids are a blessing. Grandkids are a blessing. Problem with grandkids is they grow up. You know, and then they get their own friends and their own activities, and so now, you know, my youngest granddaughter is 15. I think she is 15. She turns 15, either 15 now or turns 15 at the end of this month. But she used to come up and spend summers with me, you know, at about 9 or 10. Loved having her here, you know, and then she got into sports, and then she got her middle school is what did it. So beware of the middle school curse when you have kids, Joel. When they get to middle school, you're not cool anymore to be around. Okay, so just remember you heard that, okay?
I remember.
Yeah, all right.
About 15 years from now.
Yeah.
We'll see how long it takes me to have kids. So I have a question.
Sure.
So
Fire away.
I know that sometimes we you know, we fall down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and how did you like get yourself back up when you fell? Like, when you fell or felt tempted, how did you get yourself back up? Because sometimes we have to remember, like, you know, condemnation and all that guilt, that doesn't come from God. It comes from the enemy trying to shame you. But God forgives you. How have you gotten yourself back up?
Ask forgiveness, first of all. Okay? And recommit to not do that again. But most of all is asking forgiveness and asking for strength to overcome whatever that weakness is. I mean, we are flesh. We are fleshly beings. And our flesh will come after us and make us want to do things that, you know, we know are wrong. And it's just a matter of, okay, when this temptation comes upon you, do you succumb to the temptation, or do you turn to the Word and get in the Word and let the Word get in you to overcome the temptation? Because we all struggle with things every single day. You know, when I used to work, I road rage bad. I mean, just awful. You know, and there were probably things that come out of my mouth that probably should never come out of anybody's mouth. But I learned over time, you know, why am I getting my blood pressure up? Number one, and if Jesus were sitting in the car next to me right now, would I have said what I just said? Oh. Okay. Yep. So asking yourself, what would Jesus do in that situation? Or if he were right here with me right now, how would I feel if I had just said something that was totally ungodly? What would I do? How would I feel? Do I want to have that feeling over and over again? Because as a matter of fact, he is with me because he knows what I'm doing. So, okay, let's find a different way. So somebody cuts me off, maybe that person's having an emergency and they needed to get somewhere. You know, is it worth me getting my blood pressure up? Is it worth me saying something foul coming out of my mouth? No. Is it going to change the situation? No. They already cut me off. Is it going to make a difference? No. It's going to make a difference in me. It's going to make a difference in my relationship. Okay? With God. Am I willing to sacrifice that for that moment of explosive rage or whatever? No, I'm not. I can drive down the road now and I'm constantly looking in my rearview mirror just to make sure somebody's speeding up on my tail, I'll move over. Go ahead. I'm not in that much of a hurry. You know? Nice, calm, even flow. You know? I go to the gym and I work out. I don't know if you've been to a gym lately. I've seen women come in there with outfits on. Ooh, man, okay. Now, if my daughter were to go to a gym dressed the way I see some of the, and I mean, they have a right to wear whatever they want. I just sometimes think some of the things are inappropriate. Okay, but that's their choice. Because I'm a fleshly being, and my eyes will cause me to sin or have thoughts that I should not have. If I see a woman walking by and I catch a glimpse of one of those outfits that, you know, give you one of them thoughts, my eyes close. Very simple solution. I close my eyes. When I'm in the gym working out, I listen to gospel workout music. So if I'm listening to gospel workout music, my mind is focused on my workout and what I'm listening to. Closing my eyes gets me more focused and away from that sinful nature that can enter through my eyes. Just my solution, you know.
I could agree with that, because for me, I used to be I'm not afraid to say it. I used to be a porn addict. You can judge me, but unless you get a heaven and hell to put me in, be quiet. But for me, I learned one of the things that helped me was just not just reading the word, but reminding myself like that feeling that happens. Like you just for that, like you said, that 1 second. Like there's just that 1 second, just that feeling, that 1 second. After that, everything else you've defiled your body, you've disrespected God, you, and in some sense it's not a good feeling. You start having this doubt, and it builds this mind up and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, leave it alone. And I kept keeping myself, leave it alone. You know what comes when you do that. You know the thoughts that come in your head, and you know how it continues to build your mind. Like, look at how your mind is now. If you actually want to change and be the person that God's called you to be, how can you be that person if you're still laying somewhere that just doesn't fit you?
Engaging in things you should not engage in. Yeah. And by the way, every man a warrior has a chapter on pornography. So, I can't wait to get you into the course, man. Okay. Yeah, that's I believe that's book 2. Yeah, it talks about that. And you'd be surprised when you see the stats of men that engage in watching pornography. I never knew it was that the way it is. I don't know if you know, but the governor of Tennessee has a bill that says because children have access to pornography online.
That's how I started, because you could just literally go to your
Google
site
it,
and just watch it.
Yeah,
I started at 7 years old. That's kind of crazy. Sorry.
No, you know what? That's not uncommon, because I had a friend in Arkansas who was a school teacher that said in elementary school they had problems with kids coming into school with phones and watching pornography in the classrooms until they had to ban them from having their cell phones out in classroom. Now, here's something that may shock you. It was mostly the girls. Yeah.
And I've been seeing it sticks. A lot of women just watch porn just as much as men.
Yes.
And I think it's also this kind of like, this goes back to like the culture thing, like because like I think that also goes back to like the culture that we live in. Like I think that especially TV now for my generation is so over sexualized. Like I mean, like I turn on TV. If I put on BET Plus, like Netflix, like they used to have at least they used to have a cover over the sex scenes. Now it's just like you see you playing nudity, like it's straight up pornography. And I think the messages that it implies, the music. And I think that hearing all this stuff, especially for me, growing up, like it opens up doors that leads to you being comfortable somewhere. And sometimes it's a level of comfortability.
It's been normalized. You know, the behavior's been normalized. Oh, it's okay. You know, everybody does it. So, no, it's not okay. It's just not. You know, my youngest granddaughter has recently come out to her parents and said she's gay. And you know, I haven't had a chance to talk to her about it, but my question is, why would you think you're gay? You know,
how old is she?
That's the one that's like 15. Yeah, and she did this a year ago. Now, in all fairness,
I have a trigger. I have a point. Trigger point. I think that sometimes, a lot of times, there's something happened. I'm not saying something sexual, but just something in general. They opened the door. They saw something when they was a child that triggered that.
Yep.
Because for me, I was on that same path. I thought I was gay. Thought I was this, but really, I'm just a child of God. Like, God, like really the enemy opened up a door for me when I was younger with pornography, with me being touched by another man. So that's what I saw. And for some, it's a door that opens. Sometimes it may not be that door, but it's something that you experienced to your child, you saw, or you got curious, and it opens up a door.
Yeah.
And I think that just open up a door.
Yeah, and once that door is open, and speaking of that door, okay, her older sister, and her 3 older sisters have actually the oldest one is, I've gone down there and she's had a girlfriend living in the house with her. Next time I go, she's got a boyfriend living in the house with her, and it's been back and forth and back and forth. Well, she lives right next door to where my daughter and granddaughter, the youngest granddaughter, live. So she's been exposed to this, and I've sometimes wondered, did at sometimes somebody do something to her? And because number one, a pedophile will tell whoever they're, molesting, if you tell somebody, I'll get in trouble, so don't tell anybody. That was one of the things my daughter told me. Well, I was molested as a child by the next door neighbor. And that was one of the things he told me, What it did for me was it made me more interested in women. Well, if a man wants to do this, how about if I see if these girls want to do this too, So, I just never was attracted to men. And I was always, it just basically opened the door up for me to want to go after women all the time, or girls at that time. But, I became sexually active at the age of 14. What did I know at 14? It was community. My brothers, I had older brothers, and, they were all active, and, you better go do this. You don't do this, you're not going to run with us. Peer pressure and stuff like that. So I wondered, did somebody actually influence my granddaughter, the youngest one, that she, to be more attracted to women than boys? And, one of the things, and I did notice when she was coming, she likes boy stuff. She likes to do boy clothes. She liked boy toys because they just seemed more interesting to her at a very early age. And I never, I thought about it, but I said, well, we'll see. And, of course, now here we are several years later, and she's come out and saying that she's gay. And I'm not ready to give in to that, okay? I'm just not. And so she's always in my prayers. I'm praying that, God works on her and changes her heart, and that she realizes she's a child of God, and that she, God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. You've heard that before.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, and one of the I'm on a call every morning, 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, with some guys from Uganda. I think I may have told you that. But I shouldn't say just guys, but actually there's some women that are on this call with us. It's a Bible study. And one of the ladies is in South Africa. And last week, she works with a lot of young people. But one of the things that she had last week was, she said a lot of young people come to her, and she's a very godly woman, and they'll, one of the young ladies, teenagers, came to her and said, she thought she was gay. She felt she was gay. And so she had to have a heart-to-heart conversation with the young lady, and there was no throwing fire and brimstone and you're going to go to hell if you don't straighten up. There was none of that. She just sat down and talked to this young lady and opened the Bible and pointed out biblical references of why God created a man and a woman to be with a man and a man to be with a woman, and not 2 women together or 2 men together. And she spent time just mentoring this young lady. And the young lady came to her just recently, and she said, I thank you for mentoring me and making me understand what God's purpose is for a woman and a man. And she said, I was just confused, and I needed some new direction, and you gave it to me. And she gave her life to Christ and got baptized. Not saying that would happen in every case, but that was that was an example that, I felt, wow, very powerful message, and it was great to hear that. Because today with our young people, I wouldn't want to be a teenager today with all the peer pressure that's going on today.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, the things I see young people being exposed to. I mean, I grew up in an era when there were 3 television channels. Okay.
CBS,
NBC, and ABC. That was it, brother. And TV went off at midnight.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part.
Oh, yeah. They played the national anthem, and then they had the flag displayed on the TV when the national anthem was playing. And then after that, it was just snow and fuzz, and that was it until like 6 o'clock in the morning, and TV came back on again with the morning news. You never saw a man and a woman in the bed together on any television show. Period. It did not happen. I don't know if you remember the show I Dream of Jeannie.
I've heard of it.
Okay. So Barbara Eden, the original outfit that she had was below the belly button.
Mm.
Nope. Censor said, she can't show her belly button. And she had to cover it up. Now, she had her midsection out, but that outfit, the bottom of the outfit, covered her belly button. Nowadays, oh my God, some of the things I've seen on television, I'm just like, oh man.
Everything is all out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even on just some network television shows now, you see stuff that you would not see. So what does that do to a young mind? I wonder sometimes, what does that do to a young mind?
And I think what you see, it becomes a thought. What you think about becomes an action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're constantly seeing something, it feeds into your mind because we see it. So it's like our brain gets this thing like,
yeah,
and it stirs up something.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think sometimes we really have to counterfeit that. Instead of stirring it up in your mind, stir up the word in your heart.
Yes.
And I think that's really that's what I've been learning, to let the Lord just stir up His word in my heart.
Yeah.
And that's why this beginning of this year, I've kind of committed myself to getting up early in the morning, seeking the Lord in prayer, and allowing Him to just do the work. Because we can't fight these battles alone.
No.
We can't fight all these things we go through alone.
Absolutely
and
not.
then even if we have family members, I'm just learning. One of my mentors, he says, love the hell out of them. Love the hell out of them.
I've heard that. Yeah.
And so you love them so much that you tell them the truth, but you still love them, not in the way you're like, oh, you're going to hell, but you just love them. Like, because that's really how that's how Jesus did. He loved them. Like, he just like woman the way he saw her. He saw the sin. He didn't see her by her sin. He saw by what led to her being in the place that she was. Yeah. He loved her. And I think that we have to just love people that same way. And that's what I'm just learning, just love. And for me, I know it was difficult just walking the journey God put me on, but I'm just learning to just allow God to just do His job.
Yeah, there you go.
And be in His word.
And enjoy the walk. Enjoy the journey.
And it's so important to contend for the faith.
Yes.
Because Jude chapter 1, verse 3 talks about contending for the faith. That really, I think we said it last week, that this word faith that we have, that God has given us, is worth fighting for.
Yes.
It's worth standing for. And sometimes it's not even like, sometimes it's not fighting or telling other people about it. Sometimes it's fighting yourself about it. Like, look here, flesh.
Yes.
The word says this. You shut up, and I'm going to follow Jesus.
Yes.
And it's fighting yourself, fighting the enemy, fighting the people that the enemy sins. And sometimes we like to blame the enemy for all our problems. Really, it's just you.
Yeah.
Really, you the one that's messed up. Sometimes the enemy is not the problem. He'll feed you your idol when you want it, but then he'll shame you afterwards.
Yeah.
So.
And you think about this, Joel. Satan comes after us because he knows what we're about now.
Yeah.
When we were out there in the world and we were sinning and we were doing all the crazy stuff, hey, he had us.
Yeah.
Why would he waste time on us? Now that we're, serving God,
We're of value.
We're of value. And he doesn't like that,
Because he wants as many souls he can get before
there you
Jesus
go.
comes back.
He doesn't like that. He's trying to come after us now more and more. And there have been times when I've gotten out of the bed in the morning and I have said, wow, I'm thankful to be alive this morning. Let me get on my knees and pray and thank God for getting up this morning. At night before I go to bed, getting on my knees and praying and thanking God for having another day. And there's been times when I've crawled in that bed not thinking about praying, and my head hit the pillow, and I go, oh, wait a minute. Oh, nice one, Satan. Yeah, no,
Nice one,
brother.
Satan.
Sorry. Out the bed, on my knees, And if it's nothing more than the Lord's Prayer, to let him know, I'm still yours. I still serve you. I'm still thankful and grateful for what you have done in my life. You know, and I pray for other people. I pray for my granddaughters, my great-granddaughters. I have a couple of brothers that are still full-blown alcoholics, and I pray for them. You know, it's not just for me. It's for those people that are also in my life, because we are commanded to try to reach the lost, to disciple to those that don't know God.
Everybody wants to be a disciple, but don't everybody want to be discipled.
You know, I never understood what discipleship was all about until coming to Jubilee. It was never explained to me before. You know, nobody ever
I just heard the word.
You hear the word, and okay. So what was hammered into me in Koji was the 10 Commandments. That, you know, and by the way, there's 613 of them, not just 10. Yeah, that's a whole nother subject. Marshall Pampkin hit me to that. But anyway, that's what was hammered into my head early on as a child. You know, was those 10 Commandments. Every year we watched Moses on TV around Easter time, you know, when he led the children of Israel out of Egypt. Yeah, we had to watch that every year. That was one of my grandmother's favorite shows. So those were the things that I was raised on knowing, but nobody ever explained to me the theories and the understandings behind that. Why you need to abide by the 10 Commandments. Nobody ever explained that. You know, nobody ever explained discipleship to me. Nobody ever took the time, and if I asked questions, I was told, you don't need to know that, or shut up. Children are to be, what was it, seen and not heard, you know, that kind of thing. But I think about it now, and it's like, that's what they knew. That's how they were raised. That's all they knew. So I couldn't fault them for it, you know, but I mean, I still had a choice. I had free will, and I just chose badly. I chose to wander in the wilderness, you know, for a number of years, you know.
Sometimes we choose what we know best, what's comfortable.
Yeah.
And what we know best is not the best. God knows what's best for us.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people, especially my generation now, like asking that question. Because like what Pastor said a couple of weeks ago about a lot of young people want to know the why, the how, the what, like, and that's what a lot of people, for me growing up, you went to church because mama said so. And you did all this because mama, you go to church and you do what they say, but there's some like direction, like explaining like why is this important, and that's why why I was inspired, and me and the team and the board were inspired to have this event, the live podcast session entitled "Who Do You Say I Am?" Actually finding who Jesus is, what He has called us to do, what He wants to do, and why serving Him, why following Him is important, and why what He has for us is better than what the world has to offer. Because a lot of people are asking questions, they're conversating, but everybody's just walking past each other. We're not actually talking. We're not communicating.
Right.
We're just saying, oh, you're going to hell, and we just keep passing everybody. You're going to hell. But we're not actually talking to each other. We're not communicating. We're not actually telling. Because I think just one conversation can change one life. It's
absolutely.
just a conversation, hey, how you doing, can lead to a conversation of, do you know who Jesus is? And leading into, you hear their story, you hear their testimony, you hear what they've been through. And sometimes they can get saved just right there and right there. Yeah. And that's why it's important to have conversations.
Yes.
Because people just want to just throw the Bible and just like it's just okay, here's the Bible, do what it says. And that's not a God. That's not what God wanted. Yeah. That's not what God intended.
Yeah. And like I stayed with my grandmother most of my youth, but I did spend time with my mother and my stepdad. My real biological father was never a part of my life. But anyway, I remember being in New York with my mom and my stepdad, and being told we had to go to church on Sunday. But they were in the bed. And they would say, well, you go to church because it's good for you. And my question was, well, if it's good for me, is it not good for you too? Why aren't you going? Of course, I didn't say that, because that would have been capital punishment behind that one. So I didn't say it. But I always wondered, if this is so good for me, why aren't you going with us? And I remember one time they sent us to church, me and my 2 younger brothers, and we were just so adamant we were not going, and we didn't go. we stayed gone until the church bus came back through the neighborhood, but we went over our friend's house and hung out. They didn't go to church either. But, it's because our parents didn't go. They didn't, unlike my grandmother, she went to church. If she didn't go to church, it's only because she was almost on her deathbed. That's just how serious she was about how committed she was to being in church every year. I mean, every Sunday and, 2 or 3 times during the week. But, and she made us go, but at least she was there with us. Whereas my parents, they didn't. I remember them. I remember one Easter they went to church with us in New York, and that was it. That was the only time I ever remember them going to church with us, as a kid. In my teenage years, I know I went with my grandmother whenever she asked me to go. After I got up to about 16 years old, I was working, so my excuse was I worked late last night, so I couldn't. A lot of times it wasn't working late. I'd get off work at 11 o'clock, and I was going down to UT campus and hitting the bars down there. I mean, that's just what we did. Drinking age was 18 back then. Yeah. And so we go into any bar down there because you looked like you were 18. Everybody asked you for an ID, and that's what we did. But if grandmother, if she said on Friday or Saturday before I left the house, I want you in church with me on Sunday, I was at home and I was in church with her on Sunday. There's no doubt about it because I knew it was important to her, But again, this was a church where I couldn't really get answers. I heard the same sermons so many times that we were actually mouthing the sermons. Okay. Oh, yeah. We used to have little mock sermons at the house with my brothers and I. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because we'd heard the same sermons over and over and over again. That's what we grew up on. It didn't really
sounds
change.
Similar. And on the third day, he rose. And he had power.
Yep.
And they started singing.
Yep. And I just said, and it really kind of soured me on going to church. And I said, once I got 18, I was never going again. And it took me, when I left home a month after my 18th birthday, I think I may have gone to church maybe once or twice when I was in the Navy, only because some of the people I was stationed with asked me if I would go with them, and I did. But it took me until probably after I was out of the military in early '84 is when a friend of mine sat down with me at a drill weekend for reserves, and he actually explained more to me about what it meant to be a Christian in an 8-hour period, just between us seeing patients and talking, than I'd ever learned growing up my whole life. He made sense. So I appreciated that with him. And, I still spend a lot of years wandering in the wilderness, but at least I found my way home before I left here. That's the good thing.
That's the good thing.
And I'm grateful for that God didn't give up on me, because there were times when I asked God, hey, let me die. I don't want to be addicted to drugs anymore. I've had enough. I don't want to live like this anymore. Even tried to commit suicide one time. Mixed a cocktail of various medications and had it all set up, had it in my hand, and fell asleep. Woke up the next morning, still in my hand. That's God.
That's Lord.
Yeah, that's God. And nobody else could have done that but God. Put me to sleep, woke me up the next morning, and the first thing I realized, I wasn't supposed to die because I didn't drink it. So God must have had something that he wanted me to do with my life. And it was shortly thereafter that I got into treatment and changed my life. Yeah. And never looked back. Never looked back.
Can't look back. Because
No.
you look back, you'll go back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
that's true. That's true.
Is it Lot's wife? Lot's wife?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
she looked back and she told me to pull us out.
So you weren't with us this past Thursday with Every Man a Warrior, but I want to share something with you that the gentleman in Arkansas who's a pastor, he was on the call. His name is Teddy Connor. He was with us on the call. So he shared this example. He said, he learned early on that if we get the vertical right with God, okay, the horizontal will fall in place. Did you notice that? See what I did? The vertical, the horizontal. Yeah. And I thought, wow. That's why you want to take that course. Okay, you get things like that that'll come out of there, man, because it's a great group of guys. I mean, and I hope when we get your group started that we're going to have, some dynamic people in that group as well. So if everybody comes on board, at least one person as a pastor, so you'll be there, and then Teddy is going to be there too. He's a pastor. So there's one pastor here in Johnson City, then you, and then Teddy. Okay.
Okay.
Looking forward to it, man.
Me too.
Yeah.
One more thing for you.
Sure. Yes.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being open.
Yeah, my
Thank
pleasure.
you for being transparent.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing God to use you.
Oh, thank you, man. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege, and it's a blessing. It really is. I mean, I live every day of life now, being grateful and being thankful and knowing who I'm here to serve.
Amen.
Okay?
Got anything else you want to say for the audience before you leave?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you guys for listening. This has been another episode of Talk Talk. Stay tuned for our events. Go to talktalk.org for any information. And follow us on all social medias at Talk Talk PL, which stands for Podcast and Outreach. Well, you guys have a good rest of your day. Stay blessed. Remember to stay faithful. Remember, this is just a piece of the conversation. The real work starts with you. And please read your Bibles. Don't go around letting the pastor tell you that Jesus come back on a donkey tail and going to have rainbows following when he comes back. Because that's what happens when you don't read your Bible. So read your Bible. Because if you'll believe it because you don't read your word. So, read your word. Love you guys.